All right, Math 2, Unit 6, Volume. So I've got some formulas here, and some of the formulas are kind of intuitive and some of them are a little bit harder to see. Go ahead and pause the video now and you can copy down these formulas, and then I'm going to talk about them for a second. All right, for starters, we have B equals the area of the base. Normally, I will call this big B whenever I'm discussing it. So big B is the area of the base, right? So if we look down here and we look at, what's a good problem to look at? Number 5, this is a prism, and the base is going to be a triangle here. You can see there's a triangle on top and a triangle on bottom. The area of one of those triangles would be considered big base. So cylinder and prism, the volume is big base times height. So you take the area of the base times how tall the shape is. Another way to talk about this is h would be the distance between the bases, right? So if we're looking at this cylinder here, the height is the distance between the bases, because the base would be these two circles. All right, a special kind of prism, a rectangular prism, you have a shortcut, volume is length times width times height, which you probably already know that one, but I wanted to put it down. A pyramid and a cone, the volume is 1/3 big base times height. So it's very similar to the prism formula, right? You could think about a pyramid as being a prism that has some pieces cut off of it. So pyramids and cones are 1/3 big base times height. For a cone, you could say, just for a cone, you could call it volume is 1/3 pi r squared times height, right? Because pi r squared is just the area of that circle, and a cone's bottom is a circle. And for sphere, you have 4/3 pi r cubed, right? And that's a good segue into what are our units going to be here? Well, volume, the units are cubed, right? We have r cubed because our units are cubed. All right, so let's start off looking at number 2. Find the volume of each figure, round your answer to the nearest hundredth. That is 2 decimal spots. So let's start off with number 2. Well, this is a rectangular prism. So there's different ways we can do it, but I'm going to use the shortcut way. The rectangular prism is volume is length times width times height. So volume, length, width, height. So now we need to find our 3 different numbers. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3 different numbers. So we're going to say 2 times 5 times 8. That's 10 times 8, which is 80. And we got yards cubed. There we are. Okay, number 3, a cylinder. The volume of a cylinder is volume equals big base times height. Well, big base, we could write a special formula for cylinders. Volume is pi r squared times height, because all I did was I plugged in my circle. So if you'd like to, you can always refer to this formula here. But I'm going to try to do it the general way with big base times height, because that's the way that a lot of these problems are going to work out. So I'll just erase that. So big base is the area of the base, which is going to be pi r squared, which whenever I plug in r, I get pi 2 squared. My pen is messing up there, which is going to be 4 pi. Right? I'm going to leave things in terms of pi to start off with, and then at the very end I'll multiply in my pi. So big base is 4 pi, and h is going to be 7. So my volume is 4 pi times 7, which is, what is that, 1428? 28 pi centimeters cubed. And if we were to multiply in that pi, we would get 87.96 centimeters cubed. There we are. All right, let's look at number, what is this, 4. All right, here we have a pyramid. Pyramid's formula is volume is 1/3 big base times height. So for starters, we want to get our big base equals, we want to get a height equals, and then we'll be able to multiply them together. Height will be the easier one. Height, you go from the base all the way up to the point, right? So we're going to have 7. Big base, we're talking about the triangle here on the bottom. Here's our triangle. Here's our right angle. So I'm going to have 1/2 base times height, 6 times 8. Now, one thing to notice or to be wary of, we're going to kind of be overloading our variables here because I just said that the height is 8. But over here, I said the height is 7, right? You have to talk about what height are we talking about, right? Whenever you're talking about the big base, you're talking about the height of the base, the height of the shape of the base, right? Whereas the volume formula height is the height of the figure. So you just kind of have to be wary of that. So big base, whenever I simplify that, I have 3 times 8, which is, what is that? 3 times 8 is 24. My height is 7, so volume is 1/3 times 24 times 7. I'm going to type that into my calculator, and I got 56. So 56 meters, and what are we, cubed? Yeah, because we're volume. 56 meters cubed. All right. Number 5, what shape is this? Well, this is going to be a prism because we have a triangle on bottom. Here's the 3 points, and a triangle on top. Here's our 3 points. So volume is going to be big base times height. Something doesn't look right with this shape here. Let me erase these for a second. I'm having a hard time seeing the shape. Ah, okay. I think I drew my dots in the wrong spot. There's the bottom, and here's the top. Yeah, okay, that looks better there. All right, big base is the area of the base. So let's take this blue triangle. I'm just going to draw these in. Actually, I'm going to erase the orange dots because that's just confusing me. All right, there we go. There's a base. Now, actually, we kind of have to look at the bottom one to see it. So, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with this one. Let me erase this and let me draw in my shape on the bottom. All right. All right. So we need to orient ourselves about that right angle. We're finding the area of the triangle. This side here is 11. This right here is our height. So we're going to have 1/2 times 11 times 8.4. Whenever I type that in, 0.5 times 11 times 8.4, I get 46.2. All right. Now for the height, my volume height, I'm going to have 5 because that's the distance between my triangles. Those 3 sides there, those 3 lines there, or segments, are all 5 units long. So now I can plug into the volume formula. Volume is going to be 46.2 times 5, which is 231, and we're talking about miles, and they are cubed. All right, that's number 5. Number 6, this is a cone. Volume is going to be equal to 1/3 big base times height. And I told you that we could use the formula volume is 1/3 pi r squared times the height. All right, and all I did there was I plugged in the formula that we have for the base. So here's our radius. Here's our height, and we can just plug in. So we get volume is 1/3 pi 12 squared times 24. For starters, I'm going to leave things in terms of pi. So 12 squared divided by 3 times 24 gives me 1152, and then I have a pi. This is kilometers cubed. Now whenever I multiply in the pi, I get 3619.11, and we're still kilometers cubed. There we are. All right, number 7. Here we have a square pyramid. Volume is 1/3 big base times height. Big base is a square, so it's going to be 10 times 10, which is 100. Our height is going to be, what is our height? Our height is right here. It turns out that that's also 10. This one's kind of nice with the numbers they've got. So whenever we plug this in, we get volume is 1/3 100 times 10, which is 1,000 over 3, which is 333.33. And I guess you'd round down there. So that's where we end, meters cubed. All right, that's number 7. That one wasn't too bad. Number 8, we have another cylinder. At least I think we've already done a cylinder. Volume is going to be big base times height because it follows the rule for a prism. And we could plug in, if we wanted to, for the big base, that is going to be pi r squared height, right? Because that's just the area of a circle. I think it's valuable. I think it's good to memorize this formula. And then if you know that formula, you should be able to get to this formula anytime you want. So make sure you know that big base times height formula. So volume, I'm just going to plug in for R and H, is pi 5 squared times 9, which is going to be 25 times 9 gives me 225 pi. So if we were leaving it in terms of pi, we'd be done. We'd say miles cubed. But because we want to leave it as a decimal, I'm going to multiply by pi, and I get 706.86 miles cubed, and that's our answer. All right, number 9, sphere. I think this is one of the easier problems on the page. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. I just plug in for r, 4/3 pi 9.2 cubed. So I'm going to say 9.2 cubed times 4 divided by 3 gives me 1038. We'll say 25 pi, and that's meters cubed. And then whenever I multiply in my pi, I get 3261.76. Oh, nope, I just multiplied in my pi. And that's meters cubed. And there we are. All right, last 2 problems. 2 trapezoidal prisms. So we follow the same rule. Volume is big base times height. Our big base in this scenario, in both of these scenarios, is going to be the trapezoid here. And our height, so that's our big base, and our height is going to be 8, right? Because that's the distance between the bases. So big base, we do 1/2, and then the base is added together. So I have 5, this 5, and this 8. 5 plus 8. Now the height of my trapezoid is 2.6. So I'm going to do 5 plus 8 divided by 2 times 2.6, and I got 16.9. And I already said my height is 8, so my volume is going to be 16.9 times 8, which gives me 135.2. We're talking about feet, and they are cubed. All right, number 11. Again, we have a trapezoid here. Let me change colors. I'll use green. We have a trapezoid here. My goodness. That's our big base. So we're going to have 1/2 The bases added up would be 6 and 10. And the height of our trapezoid is 5.7. Whenever I combine that all together, I say 6 plus 10 is 16 divided by 2 times 5.7 gives me 45.6. Let me write my volume formula. Volume is big base times height. Now I want to talk a little bit about the units on here. Let's first write in our height here. Height is going to be 10. Right, that's right there. Now the units on 10 is centimeters. The units on 45.6 are centimeters squared, right? Because 45.6 is an area, and the height there, the 10, is a length. So whenever we multiply that together, we have volume equals 45.6 centimeters squared times 10 centimeters. I combine these centimeters together to give me centimeters cubed, right? I'm just trying to show you how we get that centimeters cubed, or why it is centimeters cubed. That gives us 456 centimeters cubed. Right? The 10 and the 45.6, just move the decimal point. And that's our answer. All right, that's volume.